3, 2, 1. Going live.
Hey y'all, I'm James Wright. Welcome to the shop, and tonight we have a couple special guests. We have Kenny, and down in the bottom we have Anjanette, along with Sarah. So we're going to be having fun tonight. And we're going to be talking about sharpening card scrapers. This is one of those things that once you get it, everything comes together because it's such a really, really cool project. But learning how to get that burr and actually make them work can be very, very frustrating to a lot of people. So, you trying to hide?
No. There we go. We fixed that.
So for those of you who are live, feel free to put questions in the chat and we'll try and get to them as we can. If you're watching this recorded, then go down into the description down below and you'll see timestamps with all the questions beside them. We have a couple news updates or things coming up. Number one, we just had the MWTCA meet in Omaha, Nebraska, so that was kind of fun to meet a few of you. But we're going to be having the National MWTCA meet June 14th through the 17th. That's in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And you're going to be there, right?
Hopefully so. Yeah, I believe so.
Come here and you can meet Kenny. And Jeanette. September 1st through 2nd, this is Handworks. If you go to one event, that's the one to go to this year. It usually happens every 2 years, but it's been 6 years since the last one. It's an entire town devoted to hand tools, and all of the tool makers, honestly, if you can think of a tool maker, they will have a booth there, and you can play with the tools, you can buy them. There'll be antique tools, there'll be demonstrations. Most all of the big names in the hand tool world will be there. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to it. So that's the 1st and 2nd of September in Amana, Iowa. I think I left a link to that down below, but if you go to handtool.co, not handtool, handworks.co, there's more information. It's completely free to attend, but if you sign up, then that enters you for the door prize. And I should turn my phone off. The last thing I have is Des Moines, Iowa. We have the other national MWTCA meet for this year, and that is it's the last weekend in September. So, one other thing, I got something in the mail this week. We got a black box from YouTube.
You're very washed out, by the way.
Am I?
Yeah.
Let me go flip one switch because I think I rotated it a little too far. My settings were all off. And, not that way, that way.
Oh, that looks 10 times better. Thank you.
I think it's a little oversaturated, but oh well, I can't fix that right now.
The glare is not so bad now.
The bald head light. So it was almost 4 years ago, got the 100 subscriber play button for Wood by Wright. But then I decided to make this other weird second channel for people who wanted more how-to information. And at the time, it wasn't doing very well, and everyone was going for that channel. But then more and more people have wanted to be on this channel, and because of that, YouTube sent me this. And in here is a whole nother one of these. So this is because of you all, and particularly everyone on the live. Honestly, thank you. This is absolutely awesome. So I'm going to be hanging both of them on the wall behind Sarah here soon. But yeah, 2 woodworking channels, over 100,000.
Can you maybe switch it to the camera so they can actually see? Because you can't read any of the wording on it.
You can't see it?
No.
Oh, well here. You try this camera.
Oh, look at that.
Here. You back this up and focus it. That's not going to work, is it?
There you go.
There you go. So, Wood by Wright, how to 100,000 subscribers. So, thank you, everyone. Really, this is not expected. So, yeah, we got a long way to the next play button. That's 1 million, and I don't think there's any hand tool channel that's even gotten close to that. Although Paul Sellers, I think he's at what, 600,000? I don't know. He's not too far off.
Yeah.
So, stay tuned. Who knows what the future holds? Maybe there's enough crazy people out there who like hand tools. So tonight we are going to be doing card scraping. So Kenny here has had some fun with that in the past, and we are going to try and do that. So the plan is we're going to take some card scrapers. I'm going to go through what does it take to actually sharpen these up, and then how do you use them. And then after that, we're going to take a look at some of the curved card scrapers. What are the differences? Get one of those up. And then, if we have time, we'll do a cabinet scraper. What are the differences on doing that? And going through all of those. And a lot of times, I'm like, you just do this. And it's nice to have someone in the shop who's like,
Who doesn't know anything?
yeah, I don't want, what do you mean? So, let's do this. So if you want to take,
Okay.
here, you can take that one. It's
That
nicer.
one? Okay.
Now, normally, these are the ones that I sell. They're actually made by DFM Toolworks. And I love these. But he makes them, and then he brands them, and I sell them. So if you want to buy them cheaper, you can actually go get them from DFM Toolworks on Amazon. They're the exact same card scraper, they're just cheaper. But if you want them with the Wood by Wright logo, you have to go to my website. The one problem is that the bluing on there is kind of there for show, but if you want to keep it, you have to protect it, otherwise you're going to run it off. So I take some blue tape when I am doing an initial sharpening on it. Now, if I'm just cleaning it up, the burr has weakened a bit, I'm not going to go on through this. This is where it has completely run down and I want to start from scratch. Or I thought I had a good burr on there and it's not working out right and I want to redo it. So we're going to take everything down to bare minimum and go back from there. So I just put a strip of blue tape all the way around and that will protect it. So here.
Okay.
Now what we want is to draw a picture to make it more explainable. The edge of the card scraper is basically, if you do a cross section of it, it's an edge like that. So what we want is we want to actually create a little hook on the end. And that hook is actually what does it. That's pretty exaggerated. But the way we're going to do that is we need to make sure that this first is 90 degrees. Once that is 90 degrees, then we can actually take a burnisher and push this down. And as we push it down, it's going to kind of mushroom the top here. And you're going to get this hook that comes out straight. And then we're going to come in with the burnisher and we're going to bend that hook into the curved shape. So it's kind of a two-step process. And there's a couple different ways you can do it. Actually, there's hundreds of different ways you can do it. And a lot of people are going to say, I've tried it before and I haven't gotten it to work. And honestly, try a different method. Watch another YouTube video. And there's reason why there's hundreds of how to sharpen a card scraper videos, because a lot of times it just comes down to finding the one that works for you. And so I'm going to show the way I have and show a couple of seasons what comes up with that. Okay. So these all have a slight burr on them already. We're going to take that off. So I'm going to take them over here to my coarse plate. And you don't have to do anything fine or clean. You don't need a perfect edge. We're just going to put it on here, and there are 4 edges. And as I do it, I'm just putting my fingers at different places on the plate here. Here, let me bring this one in.
So you don't want to Windex it at this point?
No, not for this.
Okay.
There we go. So I got that one. Flip it over onto this side. And I'm just going to slide it on here, and I'm going to move my fingers around, trying to get each side, and I'm getting rid of that burr. Do the same thing on this side. And this side. And then I'm going to stand it up vertical. I'm going to put it on there. Now if you really want to, you can get a block of wood, put it on the side, and that block of wood will keep it up 90 degrees.
Okay.
So I could grab something like this, put it on here, and just guarantee that I have 90 degrees. I find that to be a bit overkill, but some people like that. I just want to make sure this edge is nice and clean, and that will give me a 90 degree edge. So if you run your finger along it, it's a sharp 90 degree edge, but you're not gonna feel a burr on here.
Okay.
Here, aren't you? You feel that.
Okay.
Whereas with this one, yeah, this one you can still feel.
You can still feel the burr on that one. All right. Yeah.
Why don't you give that a try then?
Okay. There you go.
Any questions, babe?
Ray Hicks would like you to clarify what I think card scraper is, but maybe what you would use it for.
A card scraper is basically, it's the old-fashioned way of sanding. You can get a cleaner surface with this than you can with sanding, and it doesn't clog the pores with dust. It's just a 1095 spring steel, so the exact same thing as you have your saw plates. And if you have an old saw, cut one up into whatever shape you want, and you've got a card scraper. But it allows you to do that finish cleaning even on really, really difficult grain. Now, as you're sliding, are you moving your finger to different spots?
Yeah. Because when I felt that, I still had a burr, like I still got a little bit of a burr right there. You want to sand that off, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So just make sure you put a little more pressure around the edge. And, oh, no foul. Here we go.
Okay. Now, go ahead.
Now, if you really need to take off a lot, if these are really bad and not in great shape, you can put this in the file, in a vise. Let me slide this on.
Okay.
You can put the card scraper into the vise, and I'm going to do this on this edge. You can take a mill file, and I'm going to put it on there, put my fingers on the other side, and I'm just going to run it down this. And that will remove a lot of material very quickly. And with a couple strokes, you can actually go through a good bit of material. But, here, feel this. There's an ever so slight burr on that.
Yeah, yeah, you can feel that.
And that's just from doing that.
Right.
And so if you really want a quick and dirty burr, all you need is a mill file. Put it in here and do a few strokes with this, and it will put a burr on there. And if you're really, really careful, you can get a relatively nice burr with that. You can get something that will work. Let me grab this one. But most of the time it ends up being a very heavy, big burr. And just like with planes, you can have a burr that will take off a lot of material or a burr that will take off a little material. And the less you take off, the cleaner the surface you're going to get. The more you take off, the rougher the surface you're going to get. So make sure this one, yes. So with this one, just want to show.
Yeah, thank you.
So with this one, we're getting surprisingly good curls. Whereas this is the side that's 90 degrees, and I'm getting a lot of dust. And dust you don't want.
That's usually what mine looks like.
You want curls. And so that is just using the file. And most of the time, that's all you need.
Okay.
That will do it. But, what was I about to say? But you can get a much cleaner file, a much cleaner burr that will actually last longer if you burnish it. This edge won't last quite as much, and it tends to be a little more brittle. And sometimes it's going great, and then suddenly it doesn't do anything, and that burr has just snapped off.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the downsides to doing it with the file. So, for the actual sharpening of it, where my burnishers go? I got this one, and I just had it here. Did you eat that too?
No, I didn't do anything with it. I swear, I'm not responsible for this.
Cute. Perfectly. What are you looking for?
I have another burnisher. Well, I'll just use this one.
No, it's fine. Never mind.
Oh, let me grab.
put it on
I'm
my
going to grab
bench?
the AccuBurr. Is that still up here? It's a little square thing with AccuBurr. No. No.
No, sir.
Oh well. Yeah, I probably don't have time to talk about that one anyways. So what we're going to do with the burnisher is the way I do it is quick and dirty. I like to make things fast and efficient. And so I take the card, I put the corner into the bench and push against it.
Okay.
I grab the burnisher and I keep it at 90 degrees. So I'm not tipping it one way or the other, just at 90 degrees. And I'm going to go off the end, bring it back, off the end. And I'm just going to do a few strokes until I feel that burr coming up. Do this side. And this one is actually an unground carbide rod. You need a rod that is harder than your card. So these are actually relatively soft. So if you have a hardened screwdriver, they work. If you have a knife steel, they work. If you have a file with a safe edge, you can use that. Carbide is just much, much harder, and the bigger the difference in hardness, the easier it is to pull it out. And particularly this one is unground, so it has a bit of a texture on there, which kind of like grabs the steel and pulls it off. So once I have it at 90 degrees going back and forth, Then I'm going to take it back up to the top, and I'm going to take it from 90 degrees and tilt it down just like 5 degrees, not much at all. And as I go, I'm going to move it forward, and I'm going to draw it off. So I'm close to the handle here, and when I get down to the end, I'm away from the handle. So I'm actually just kind of grabbing that steel and pulling it out. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So just a slight angle. And
You know
just
what
a
you
slight
didn't
angle.
do, James?
What?
Or unless you're going to do it later. You didn't have Kenny really introduce himself.
I didn't. Why don't
Sorry.
you tell us a little bit about yourself while I do this?
I know we have
my
family
name's
watching.
Kenny Horn, and my wife Anjanette and I are up here visiting the Wrights, and we live outside of Louisville, Kentucky, in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. So, and this little visit and being here tonight, this is actually Anjanette's Christmas present to me this year, and this has been like the greatest Christmas present I've ever had.
We've been hanging out in the shop today, so
Yeah.
it's been fun doing
You've
dovetails.
never
Yeah.
seen two such similar people.
It's a little scary.
Right, here, I want you to feel this, because on this one, I've got a very, very light burr on this, and I've got a really heavy burr on this one. I did this one about twice as much.
Okay. Just from the different. Okay.
So it's just enough it barely catches, whereas the other side, there's a heavy burr
Yeah,
that
the other
you
one's
can
easy
feel
to
a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
And so the heavy burr, I can take off a lot more material, but it's going to leave a little bit rougher surface, and it has a better chance of breaking.
Now, do you typically do that? You know, like do one
No,
edge with the finer,
no,
or
I,
just
I generally just do the fine burr,
okay,
but I want to show you some of the difference in that.
okay, yeah.
Because most of the time when I have a card scraper, it's just when I have difficult grain, I just want to cut into something. I want to do that final smooth shaving. It's very rare that I'm going to use this for any type of stock removal. But if I do, the heavy burr is where I go.
Yeah.
So here,
Okay.
you gonna say something? Or?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
So 90 degrees
Yep.
and off the end. And on this one, I like to put a decent amount of pressure, something around like 3 or 4 pounds of pressure. When I'm actually doing the draw out, I do it a little bit lighter. But you're trying to mushroom it down and squish the metal out to the side.
Wait, do that again?
There, let's see. Oh yeah, there you go.
Okay.
It's just barely can feel it. It's very, 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 very slight.
All right. So Dr. Khan wants to know, do Kenny and Janet like My Big Fat Greek Wedding as much as you and I?
It's been a long time since we've seen that movie. We have to watch that
Yeah, they're
again.
coming out with a number 3 now.
I know, I'm so excited.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, how am I feeling there?
Yeah, that's about right.
About right.
Now,
okay. Now I still.
No, I don't
need
remember
to-
what it is. Okay. Yeah, so put it on there at 90 degrees and then just tip it down a little bit and start close to the handle. Actually, for this one, I take my hand all the way off of that.
Okay.
So I start close to the handle and then kind of swing it out. And as you do, it pulls it out to the side. There you go. And the more of an angle you put onto it, the more your hook is bent up. And the more your hook is bent up, that determines the angle at which you put the scraper. So if you only put like 5 degrees on it, it should be only like 6 or 7 degrees off of vertical. If you're putting more, then it goes farther and farther down. Now, if you're having problems with this, one of the coolest new devices I've come across is the AccuBurr. It's put out by Union Toolworks, and you can get it on taytools.com. It makes this so easy. You square it up at 90 degrees, and then you put it in this little V-groove, and you go back and forth on it, and it's done. It's really cool. Takes all the guesswork out of it. Once you have the skill down, it doesn't really save much time. I did a video in comparison, but for learning it, it is mind-blowingly easy. It's a bit expensive, but so are all the good tools.
Now, why the drawing it off this way? Why not just tilt it and go back?
Because
and
you're actually pulling the steel with it as you
Okay, so
pull it
you're-
across.
Okay.
You're pushing it down and mushrooming it a bit, but then the texture on this is actually drawing the steel out.
Okay. Now, does that feel about right?
That one feels good. That one feels good. Let's see what we got.
Okay.
Now, one of the conundrums about card scrapers is
So-
the softer the wood is, the harder it is to work.
I just want to know, when you get to that point, is it burrific?
Yes, it is.
Hey, I'm just doing what you pay me to do.
Wait, to pay you?
I know.
Since
that's my
when?
point.
Oh, here, let me do it with, yeah, we'll do it first. So the softer the wood, so if I were to do poplar is a really, really difficult wood to scrape. Harder woods, they get easier. You get something like some of the Australian woods, they're incredibly easy to scrape. You get this even close to it, and they'll scrape beautifully. Also, the more ring porous your wood, the more you're going to get a rougher surface. The smoother the wood is, the smoother your surface is going to be. But ring porous, like if you feel this, you can feel the pores in here a good bit more.
Yeah.
Just because they tear out a bit. So,
You know, actually, Sarah's payment could be total strangers coming from states away and invading your house. There's your payment, you know.
Okay, which camera are you trying to be on?
I'm about to change it.
I thought so.
So, what we're going to do is I want to grab the card and bend it just a little bit.
Okay.
And that way you're getting a nice clean surface. There's no plane tracks. It also allows you to detail one spot. Because a lot of times you have that little bit of tear out. You're just trying to get rid of that.
Okay.
But what I'm looking for is then we need to figure out what the angle is. So if I have it straight up, I'm not getting anything.
Right.
If I move it way down here, I'm not getting anything. And so what you want to do is start with it up high and then slowly lean it forward until it catches. And that's the angle you want it at.
Okay.
If you move it lower, you run the risk of breaking that off or having other issues with it. So you're trying to find what that angle is, and then those are just pleasing. So that's the fine edge. This is the rough edge. It's like biting
Here's the
in.
difference, yeah.
I could put a lot of force behind that, but it's taking off a lot of material.
Yeah.
And so that's the big difference with it. Here, let's see what yours has got.
Okay.
So start with it vertical,
Yeah.
and then lean it forward until it catches. And that's the
Okay.
angle at which you want to hold it. And you're really pushing, imagine pushing into the wood with your thumbs. Yeah.
It gets hot.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people will take a refrigerator magnet and put it on the back where your thumbs are at.
Yeah.
It insulates your thumb.
Yeah. It gets
Wouldn't be the
surprisingly
time
hot.
for a perfect
Yeah.
product.
Yeah.
When it's good, that higher pitch, it's vibrating and heating up. Now, that works great in oak. Let's put it in poplar and just see how good that is. Or how bad it is, we'll find out.
Now, what's the difference between this type burnisher and like the kind that comes with kitchen knife sets?
A knife steel is a hardened steel, and
Okay.
so it'll work fine.
Okay.
They tend to have a ridged texture on them,
Yeah.
and so sometimes they can cause you problems if you're not careful.
Okay.
But they work really well. I actually have.
So this is this you would consider this much better than a worthwhile investment.
Yes, I mean
Oh,
this will.
Do you hear that, honey?
This will do work,
I hear purchase in the
but it just it takes more work to get there.
Okay.
Next Christmas.
The harder your steel is, the easier
I'll
it
have
is
field
to make
pens
that
on it.
transition.
Okay.
So let's see what we can get with poplar. Oh yeah, we got the just dust coming off.
Oh yeah, and it feels almost like tear out there.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that one's going to need more work. That's on the coarse side.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try this one, see if I get any better. A little bit. A little bit better. Not that much. Poplar and pine are very, very difficult. And specifically in this one, I'm gonna if I keep it down here, I'm gonna get a lot more dust.
Yeah.
If I lift it up higher, the higher I can get it, the better the chance I'm gonna get a curl. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Here, give it a try.
Okay. Oh wow, that's rough in the cob.
Yeah, well, with soft woods, scraping is pain. Yeah, try and stand it up a little higher. And you're up like,
Up more?
yeah, up almost like that.
Okay. See there, I'm getting dust.
Your burr is down a little farther.
Okay.
Skin's
They're laughing at us.
So, yeah, that's the problem with pines and softwoods.
Yeah.
Is they don't scrape well.
Yeah.
And you can get a card scraper to do this, but it takes a lot of skill.
Yeah.
I can only get it to do that like once out of every 5. And if I really need to do this, I'm going to take this back and spend some more time on it, and then probably take it back again until I get that burr just right. And it takes the time. But then when you do get it, it's like, oh, it's actually working on this. Here, let me grab. Oh, yes. Okay. Here, down here. So earlier today, we were planing this beautiful piece of curly maple. Let's see if I can get this on camera. And it's got really cool chatoyancy. So we were able to plane this, which is not an easy wood to plane. But let's see what it does with the card scraper.
Yeah. But we were able to plane it though, so that was a big improvement.
Let's do this face so we can compare the plane to the card scraper. So let's see which burr do I want. I want this one. I love seeing those curls sticking to it. Gotta stop them so they don't roll off. But there.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you compare the two, this one's a little bit rougher.
I was going to say, yeah, the plain side actually feels smoother than
And
the strict one.
that's why most of the time, if I can, I plane it.
Yeah.
But sometimes I don't want to mess up. I don't want to mess with getting the plane set up to be able to do that. And the card scraper can do that, and that's more than passable.
Now, if you had like, say you had the plain finish, and say it had like a little knot in it there, that was like
Yeah. And
impossible.
the
to
big
plane.
thing with this is like if I have a piece of tear out here, I can come in and I can hit that spot, and I can get that spot clean.
Right. Okay.
And that's what. Yeah.
Yeah.
So give that a try.
Okay.
And you may find that you don't have the best burr in the middle, so you can slide over to the side a bit.
Okay.
Or you can slide over to this side and flip it over that side. And some people even do the ends of the cards.
Yeah.
And you'll find a very different temperament in the card from here to here to here. And so sometimes just shifting from one side to the other can give you a completely different curl.
Now, in scraping something like this, how long is that going to last before you have to go back and pull the burr again?
It depends every time.
Okay.
Sometimes I will have a burr that only lasts me, 2 foot by 2 foot square area. And sometimes I can do an entire tabletop on one burr. Every one of them is a little bit different. Everyone's a little more fragile or a little more hardy. And
Yeah.
It's one of those skills you can spend the whole rest of your life on, really detailing and getting something that's consistent every time.
Yeah.
is very, very hard. Getting one that's passable and works, especially when you have 4 sides, and each one of those 4 sides is going to be slightly different temperamental, you'll get one that works.
Yeah. Okay.
But getting one that's like perfect or can do poplar, that's a lifelong.
Yeah. Lifelong challenge.
Yeah.
Story of my life.
We got any questions first?
We have a couple.
Okay, what we got?
So John Hayes asked, are some scrapers more stiff than others?
Yes. I don't have my thick ones here. But yeah, different people like different ones. Mine are all 35 thousandths, 0.035. And I like that flexibility. It's enough that I've got to put some pressure in it to bend it, but it's not really flexible. Some of them get really thin, like the 0.02. Those ones are just incredibly flexible and very, very bendable. A lot of people like those because you can get a very small spot. Some people like them really stiff so that they can't quite bend them. So it's a personal preference, but I'd say the middle ground that most people have is right around 0.35, 0.035.
Now, is that
that's right.
similar to typical saw panel?
That is about the thickness of a larger panel saw.
Okay.
Although, when you get into a good panel saw, a good hand saw, one of the differences is it's thicker here than it is back here.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
sometimes like 10 thousandths
Yeah.
different. Because they actually grind out the back of this so that it doesn't want to pinch up as much.
Yeah.
So you can get a different thickness cards plate depending upon where you pull it out of the saw.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look at a curved one. I'm going to start with this one. But a bit of where to put the... Oh, there it is. Get that back up in here. When you get into curves, inside and outside, people get really worried. And I would say I use my curved card scrapers probably about 25% of the time when I grab a card scraper, because there are so many different surfaces, especially when you're doing totes and knobs and things of that nature, to be able to get into an inside curve or just to spot with something. Having one that has all the different shapes is so nice to have. But then you get into it and you look at, well, how do you burnish that?
Yeah.
The thing is, very rarely are you going to use this whole shape. Most of the time you're wanting like that curvature, or you want to use that curvature. And so you don't have to sharpen the whole thing. You sharpen the area you want to use. So let's do this back bump here. It hasn't been done in a while, but it is pretty close to flat. And we can leave that alone. So when you're doing this, it's going to be very, very similar. I'm going to grab this, and I'm just going to keep it at 90 degrees and mushroom it down. Not really worrying about it much.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to tip it a little bit and try and draw it out. That's good. That one give me a little bit. So let's see what we got. Ooh, that one's digging in. And so with these curved ones on a flat surface, you can get a pretty deep cut. Almost like it's a scratch stock, basically is. And here. Feel what the divot that was just created.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is deep.
So here, why don't you try like that section.
That's it. Okay, right there. Okay.
Any question right now, babe? Think about pressure
like you
while you're doing
kinda
this section.
answered.
What's that?
One of the questions I feel like you kind of answered at the last one.
Oh.
So Caneycreek Woodcarver asks, can you use the back of your saw if you just need to use it for a one-time use on a small project?
Sure. As long as you're careful, you're probably going to want to take the burr off before you saw again, because you don't want that sticking out into the side of what you're cutting into. But yeah. Yeah, it's hard going the other direction. You're left-handed
this,
trying
this
to do
is going to be a train wreck.
right-handed thing.
All aboard. No, I'm sorry.
One of the things I like about doing it this way, with having it 90 degrees and then drawing out the burr,
Yeah.
is that it kind of makes it a little bit more forgiving in how you do it. A lot of people will try to do it all in one. They'll mushroom it and pull it all on one movement.
Yeah.
And I find that it tends to run into a few more problems than not. But yeah. Might want to pick a different spot than where I was, just because it's a different curvature.
You ready for another question?
Here we go. Yeah, what do we got?
Dennis Meko asks, can you finish right after scraping?
Yeah, yeah. When someone talks about scraping with a card scraper, you're going to talk about being buttery smooth. And in all honesty, especially when you're working with hardwoods, that's buttery smooth. Now, it isn't quite as buttery smooth as the planing is.
Yeah.
If you get a plane set up really, really well, it will always give you a smoother shaving. And so, buttery smooth technical.
How smooth's your butter?
And then it is the question of, like something like this with the curly maple, I want to see that chatoyancy. I want to see that pop out. So I want to actually get some dust into the grain, which is kind of counterintuitive, but that will draw the oil down in deeper and give you a deeper contrast between them. And so in that case, I'm probably going to hit it with a little bit of 400 grit sandpaper before moving on. But particularly if you're doing straight maple, you don't want that blotchiness. And it's really, really good to be able to scrape and then directly finish. Because then you don't have that dust pulling the oil down in farther. Because the blotchiness comes with one area that pulls it down in farther than another area. Because it's counterintuitive, but the maple, even though it's really hard and really dense, does have thousands and thousands of pores. It's just oak, you can see the pores.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say.
I don't know. I had no
I
idea.
don't know either. Okay, let's move on to cabinet scraper. I think we have time for that.
Okay, yeah.
So with a cabinet scraper, it's basically going to be the same thing, except for I need to grab pliers, this one. Excuse me. Did I put them up here? Oh, I did.
Right there.
This one I was really cranking down last time. You can just use a... How did I... Oh, it's pinching, that's why. Trying to drive the pliers into the side. You can put a regular card scraper into a cabinet scraper. It will work fine. It's just that cabinet scrapers tend to have a little bit thicker iron. It's pretty beefy stout.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's far more resilient. It's almost twice as thick.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so getting a good cabinet scraper iron is nice. DFM Toolworks sells them. I think Hawk still sells them. I don't know because of going with that. But actually, let me grab a dull one up here because this one is actually pretty nice right now. Oh yeah, this one's the original Stanley. Yes, I think it is. Come on out. Yes. Stanley Sweetheart. And they actually have a 45-degree bevel on the edge. And this has confused a lot of people because people think that if there's a bevel, that means it needs to be a plane iron and cut the wood at an angle like a plane iron. But no, it actually is a card scraper. The bevel is on the back here towards me, and just like a card scraper, I'm going to lean it, and I'm going to push it forward to scrape. So like this one, grab the right burr. This one I can scrape with that. And so I'm getting that same thing, and I'm pushing it just like a card scraper. So if you think about this, it is just a holder for the card scraper. So your thumbs would be pushing in. In this case, the screw is pushing it in. So the reason that there's a bevel on there is putting a bevel on there makes it incredibly easy to turn a burr.
Okay.
You can do it instantly without thinking about it. And you can get a very, very reliable burr. The downside is you're only getting one burr on that edge. You're not getting two burrs.
Right.
With a card scraper, it's really nice when one side gets hot, you can flip it around to another spot or another location and just keep going to keep your thumbs warm, your thumbs cool. Whereas with this, you're not going to be moving it back and forth. But the nice thing about doing it at the 45 is you get a very resilient, heavy-duty, long-lasting iron. So for this, we're going to treat it kind of like a combination of a regular iron and a card scraper. And we're going to sharpen it. Oop, wrong one. We were on 4. So if you have a burr on there already, you need to remove it. Oh, the speedway's running. So I'm going to put it bevel side up.
No, you're not showing anything.
Let's
There
try
you
that
go.
camera. I'm going to put it bevel side up and basically doing the back of the iron. And what that's going to do is the burr will be hanging over the side, and I'm getting rid of that burr.
Okay.
And just going to rotate it.
Okay, so now you can use Windex. I'm confused.
Yeah, I always use Windex.
Not when you were doing the card scraper.
Oh, well, no, I don't need it there. I'm not removing enough material for it to matter. In this case, I'm
So we're-
actually grinding a bit of material off. What's that?
Nothing.
And so I've gotten the back flat. There's no burr on this. I want to go back to that 45-degree bevel. And in this case, I'm just going to freehand it. because the bevel is so small, it grinds through it pretty quickly. And I'm going to be going until I feel a burr on the back,
Okay.
just like with a normal bevel. It's kind of hard to hold on to. Let me make sure I'm actually hitting this one correctly. Yeah, that one just needs a little more work than I was expecting. A little more work. This is an old one, an old iron. Actually, I haven't used in like 5 or 6 years since I got the DFM Toolworks. There we go. There's a little burr on there. Flip it over and do the other side. Here, you can feel.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then we'll go on to this one. Flip it over. The first stone shapes the bevel. The rest of them are just there to sharpen and hone it. Get rid of the scratches from the previous one, give you a little cleaner surface. And I'm not going to take it onto the strop. We don't need that. But I do have that bevel, and I want to get rid of it, so I'm just going to lay this one down flat on the last one, and basically remove that burr we just created,
Okay.
so that we can create a burr.
Yeah.
We remove
So
the
you
burr.
can pull
To,
the burr off from
Yeah.
the edge.
we remove
Okay.
the burr to create the burr. So now, this is not quite razor sharp, but it's not too far off. I'm not worrying about this being
Wait, which
perfectly
camera
sharp.
do you think you're talking to?
I think I'm talking to this one.
Okay.
This, it's not razor sharp, but it's close to it. So then with this one, I grab the burnisher, and with this one, I'm not going to do any particular angle. I'm just going to keep it at 90 degrees.
Okay.
And I'm going to push the bevels on this side over here, and I'm going to push it away from the bevel as I go. So I'm just going to start here, and I'm going to go, and I'm just drawing and pushing. And with those few strokes, I'm just starting to get here. You can feel the burr on the back of that.
Okay.
It's not a whole lot yet,
Yeah.
and I think I'm missing it a little bit in the middle.
Okay.
But it's usually, yep, that's about all we need right there.
Okay. Yeah.
Here, why don't you try this side?
The other side? Okay. And you're going that direction.
Pushing it out, keeping it 90
Okay.
degrees as you go down. And it's easier to hold this consistently than it is the others. Here, why don't you feel it now?
Yeah. Feels pretty, maybe a little thin right there on that.
Yeah, a little more.
Yeah.
Just like 3 more strokes.
Okay.
Again, the bigger the burr is, the more material you're going to take off. The easier it is to work with. That should be good.
Okay.
So, now, let's set it up in this thing. And this beast is confusing because every other plane means that's forward. And so it looks like it should go that way. And I have people contacting me all the time saying, I can't get mine now because you need to turn around. This is the front. So we're going to set this down.
So you can put like a piece of tape on there and put an arrow.
Yeah. I'm going to put it down here. I'm going to put my fingers on this to hold it in place. I'm going to slide it into the slot. Bevel towards me. Flat that way so the burr is turned forward. And slide it in. And I'm just going to put it until it sits on the bench.
Okay.
And then tighten up this and this. With those finger tight, on this one I found I like to just grab a pair of pliers and just tweak them a little bit more. Not much.
So you have to put the Quahides on those.
Yeah. And then this back here, this is your thumb, so you can put more pressure into it.
Okay.
And the way this works is right now, it's not doing anything. The blade is just barely touching the surface. And the more I turn this, the more it bends it. And the more it bends it, the more it's pushing it forward. And so I'm creating a bit of a radius inside. And you can hear it just starting to engage. Move a little farther. There, now we're getting a little bite. I'm going to flip this over because we got these hollow spots we created.
Good for hitting us.
Why is it skipping?
I think they're laughing at us again.
No,
That's
on the
normal.
video, it's like you're scraping into our heads, like you're trying to hit us.
There we go. There you go. You're getting these really heavy curls coming out here.
Yeah.
We can't see them. Our heads are blocking them. I'm sorry.
Here.
We've been beheaded. No, anyways. There we go.
One more. Let's give it a try.
Okay.
And so you got to push it down into the wood.
Push it down like back here.
Yeah, just like the card scraper, except for you're not actually bending it. So I put my thumbs on the back of the back wall of it. Yeah,
Ah, okay.
there you go. And if you find it's biting too much, then you can loosen it up and get a little bit lighter shaving. We have it taking off some pretty heavy shavings right now. And just like with a plane, you've been taking off a bunch of shavings in the middle.
Right.
And so it's high on this side and high on this side. So as the plane is riding on here, it's touching here and not touching in
And
the
not
middle.
touching in the middle.
So if you move over to the side, then you'll bite again.
Ah, yeah.
And so it is
Because
actually
it's not
taking
flat
off
like a
material.
plane iron. Yeah.
And that's how you can do a whole tabletop without ripping apart your thumbs.
Yeah.
And it's going to give you pretty much the exact same surface you were feeling with the card scraper. You look at it like these spots with the smooth grain, and it feels so good. And you get
Yes.
that the ring porous.
Right. Where you sort of
So,
see that
James,
come
do you
out.
just go to the side?
Here, we're... Oh, sorry, wrong camera. Let's do this one. Where are we at? Hi there.
No, for the smoothness. Do you rub your head and rub the board?
Oh
and
yeah,
go,
which is smoother? I can't quite tell.
Okay, I'm not doing this test. Okay? It gets weird at some point. Okay, so now the difference between like the cabinet scraper and like a number 12 or number 112, where
Okay.
because they don't flex the iron, do they? It just works off
No.
the tilt.
Yeah, and this one, rather than actually bending it, you get the full width cut.
Okay.
And you can actually get the full width cut with this, rather than putting it to touch the surface and then cranking it down. You just lift the plane up a little bit,
Okay.
or sometimes people take a brass hammer and just kind of tap it down into the wood,
Okay.
and so it just pushes it down a hair farther, and you can get the full width of that. But with this, you actually adjust the angle at which it's cutting, so you get to choose where it's cutting. And so a lot of times you will. Let me just remember this one is this one. The fulcrum is up there, so it's down there. So what you'd end up doing is you'd lean it forward, put the card in, and then have it just touch the wood, and then you bring it back until it's scraping.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, that's the correct direction. It's back until it's... I don't use this one all that much. Because I honestly find this to be far less ergonomic because I'm up higher. Right, there it is. And so I don't like this as much. I mean, again, it's personal taste, and I'm getting this full width,
Yeah.
beautiful shavings, but here, feel the difference.
And where do you put your thumbs on this?
Yeah, because you're not putting it right on the plate. You're
Yeah.
just kind of wrapping it
You're
around.
just holding
So
on
you're,
to
you're
it.
still pushing with your palms on that, whereas this one you're pushing with your thumbs.
Could
So
you
may-
pull it towards you with the
You can,
handle?
yeah. You can turn around and pull it.
Pull it. Okay.
As with most tools in the shop, you can push it or you can pull it.
Like that just looked easier. I have baby hands. You know, you gotta make it a certain way.
So which one do you like better?
That one, I'm a little older. That would get hard to push after a while. So that's a little easier.
It's just, I think the thing for me is that the handle is up higher,
Yeah.
and I find that I'm just like rotating more with it. But
Yeah.
a lot of people love it. And then there's also scraping planes, which are, a regular plane style. except for rather than there being an iron in here, the blade is standing up and you have a scraper in there.
Yeah.
And maybe someday if I get the money, there is a kit that you can buy, and I can't remember his name right now, but you can take the frog out of your plane and you can put in a scraper in there. And so you can turn it into a scraper plane, because scraper planes now are incredibly expensive. They're very, very collectible. And the nice thing about that is you get the whole feel of it being a plane, and it works like a plane, and it feels like a plane, except for it's scraping like a 12 or 112. Oh, and then there's the Stanley. This is the Stanley 80. Then there's the Stanley 81, which has a wooden sole, and that one a lot of people swear by because it will burnish the wood a little bit more, and you get a nice clean surface. Honestly, I haven't felt that big a difference between the two, but some people absolutely love that. So, yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
Anything else you want to try? We got questions?
We had a couple.
Okay.
So
If
John
anyone has any
Hayes
last minute
asked,
questions?
You're always going with the grain. How does the scraper work on cross grains?
That's the nice thing about a scraper, though, is it really doesn't care about the grain. Now, cross grain, yeah, you're not going to get quite as clean a surface. But like if I am going, here, let's bring this in. On this, like with the grain or against the grain, actually this is with the grain. It's just feeling a little bit smoother. Yeah, and I'm getting a cleaner surface in here.
Okay.
Whereas this, what we have been doing is against the grain. And so it can go either way. You're always going to get a better surface if you go with the grain. But if you're going against the grain, card scraper can do that. Now the question is cross grain. It does it, but you're not going to get as clean a surface, especially in something like this that's ring porous.
Right.
It's going to start tearing it up. And so usually what I'm going to do when I go cross grain is I'm going to turn it 45 degrees and I'm going to shear it across. So my card is going across the grain, but it's at an angle and kind of shearing across.
And you would use that sort of like if you was working around a knot or something.
Yeah, I mean, in this case with oak, it's really, really hard. You're never going to get a really clean surface.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing something like, let's see, why is everything down here oak? Sycamore. Here we go. Yeah, that's not going to be able. Oh yeah, here we go. On the end here, the grain on this goes both ways. It goes in all directions. Break that knot off. And so in this is where it really shines, because getting dust right off the surface because it's coarse. And so on this side, this is with the grain, and that's against the grain. So I'm actually going to lift it up a little bit higher. And I can get a relatively good surface. Now it's going to feel better on this side than it is on this side.
Yeah.
But
it's not a huge difference, though.
if I bring in the smoothing plane that's set up for it, at least it was set up earlier, wasn't it? Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Let's set this up. That was ways off.
It's really smooth. Right over.
There we go. Going with and against the grain. And I love these where you get the curl that goes through it. But it just feels better.
Yeah, it does feel better. It's unbelievable there's no tear out on that.
But
going that way.
that's because that one we spent time setting it up.
Right, yeah.
We spent a while earlier today setting up smoothing plane, so that will actually do it, but it takes the time to do that. Whereas with the card scraper, you can go through it. What's next?
Let's see. Timothy Mallon says, on planes like the 80, should you release the thumb tension when not being used, or will the steel always return to flat?
Nah, it's spring steel. Spring steel's fine. You're putting it the slightest bit of curvature into it. It's not that much. That's one of the things about spring steel is it is unbelievably flexible.
Yeah.
I mean, that,
Wow,
that scares
Kenny,
a lot
you're
of people. But I mean, that's what makes it great. Is it's really, really flexible, and you can take a bend out of it, just like that.
Just like that.
There you go. You can also ruin a friendship, just like that.
Oh, he never saw it coming. Anyways, last question. Tony Wright asked, how much do I need to worry about various finishes not taking well after just scraping? I have a feeling
Honestly,
it's personal.
Scraping is going to give you, when it comes to a surface being able to absorb finish in, sanding will always give you the best surface. Especially when you hit something like a 400 grit at the end, and you get really fine dust, and you work that into the pores, that wicks the finish down in deeper. With card scraping, you get a little bit, but not as much. So planing is actually one of the hardest to get a finish to adhere to, because it leaves such a clean sliced surface. There's nothing to pull the finish down in. And so that's one of the hardest. Card scrapers is better than the plane for that. So in most cases, that's the way you want it. But if you're trying to fight blotchiness, the plane is the way to go. Because you get that sliced surface, it's going to bring everything down evenly. It's really nice for that. And so the card scraper is kind of like the medium ground between sanding and planing. What's next?
That's it.
That's it?
That's it.
Cool.
Well,
They're a little wondering about you and their saw now, but they're like,
Saw.
maybe I don't want to come to the shop.
I've gotten so used to just taking out saws and bending it for the fun of it. Don't even think about it. There's other people in the shop now.
Yeah. And like this guy, John Phillip, that's one of our friends from back home. So thanks to all of our friends in Kentucky watching in tonight. So they was probably waiting to see if there was an injury, and we was close. I mean, we got really close.
I nicked myself earlier today. So. Cool. I think we'll wrap it up. And I'm not sure what we're going to do next week, but if you have something you want me to do, let me know. But I think I'll do it for now. Until next time,
Of course.
have a wonderful day.
See y'all.
Bye. Alrighty.
Cool.